So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this SORA event. My name is Hannah Osinga. I am SORA's current chair. I am assisted with this event by Daniel McKay, who is managing this Zoom session, including a recording that will be posted to SORA's website. And we also have Eric on the line who will be moderating the comments. So if you have a comment or a question for a presenter, please pop that into the chat. And both have said that they are okay to receive those throughout the presentation. We have two really great presentations for you today. We'll start with a 30-minute demonstration of a web-based data resources and online guides that are available through your state library account. Then we'll spend the next 30 minutes with the Chief Data Office, hearing about the Oregon Data Strategy, Open Data Program, and recent growth in the office. So let's dive right into our first presentation by Amy Kokenauer. She has worked in libraries for over 10 years in a variety of library areas, including reference, instruction, outreach, and electronic resources. After starting in a virtual reference and academic libraries, she now supports state government employees as a member of the Government Information and Library Services Division of the State Library of Oregon. Amy, please take it away.
Thank you, Hannah. Hi, everyone. I'm going to start sharing my screen now, and I'm going to be sharing Firefox, but just so you know, the resources I'm sharing you can use in any web browser. They work in Firefox, Chrome, prefer Edge. Internet Explorer, I think we're all aware, is no longer supported for browsing. It's only for legacy applications. So we do recommend that you use a modern browser for accessing library resources. I'm going to copy this URL and paste that into the chat. This is the main site for state employees for accessing the state library for our website. From here, because this is a shortened version of this training. Usually I give this in an hour-long presentation. I'm not going to be going over all the state library resources right now, nor am I going to go over how to activate your library account. Hannah and the others were awesome, and they sent out a video beforehand so that you could activate your account. If you have any questions, please email us or call us. We have our general email linked right here and our general phone number, so you can contact us afterwards if you have any questions. I'm going to go scroll down the page, and on the bottom left image tile, I'm going to click on the link for research tools. And then from here, I'm going to click on the top right image tile for info guides. These are online information guides that library staff have created focused on the resources that we provide to our users. And those could be state government workers, or they could be individuals who are at other locations. I think I stopped sharing the screen. It bounced me out.
Your screen stopped sharing.
Yes, I noticed that too. Can you see it now?
I think your screen stopped sharing. Are you able to push it again?
I did. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see it now, Amy.
Okay, great. Thank you. It looks like it knocked me out. So I'm going to be shutting down some programs and see if that will help it behave a little bit better. The resources on this page will be available for everyone who accesses this page. So if you are at a state agency that may not have full access to state library resources, you will be able to access this page. There are also online guides for libraries throughout Oregon. I'm going to scroll down and go to the Finding Data and Statistics guide. I'm also going to copy that and paste that to the chat as well. And this is what I'll be using whenever I talk today. This is a guide that's created to go along with an hour-long Finding Data and Statistics training. We have registration offered through Workday. So if you want to attend one of our hour-long sessions, the upcoming sessions are available right here listed at the bottom left. And a couple things before I dive into our databases. One is a terminology review. When I talk about the words data and statistics, usually when I use the word data, I'm thinking about the raw information. I visualize this with a scattering of different numbers, but it doesn't have to be just numbers. It could be words, phrases, responses to surveys like the poll that we had earlier. But you know, that general information before we've interpreted it. Once we've interpreted the information, then I start using the word statistics. And the reason I mention this is because I think it's helpful for us all to think about how we define those terms before we start looking for data and statistics, because our own internal definitions may not be the definitions used by the resources that provide them. So even though I use the word data and statistics one way, when I'm searching for data and statistical sources, they may be using other terms. They may be more specific. So they may be thinking about qualitative data or quantitative data. They may be specifically about, opinion or polling information. So thinking about that will be very, very helpful when it comes to my search preparation process. And the search preparation is just that brainstorming aspect where you're thinking about the types of data or statistics that you're looking for. You're considering who's likely to create the statistic or who's likely to provide the data. And then asking yourself clarifying questions. So how is the information disseminated? How is it being shared with the public? Is it being shared with the public? Do you have to have a membership to an organization, or do you have to go through a paywall? Are we looking at open data, or are we looking at subscription data? And who's storing the data or the statistics, and how is access provided? So I'll be sharing some library databases, and those data sets are stored by either the vendors or the providers that they're aggregating the data from. And then the access is being provided by the state library. So once you have a state library account, we're authenticating your access so that you can get to it. And so there's some of those kinds of steps to consider when looking for data sources. And going back to that idea of considering your terminology, I've had some search strategies below if you're doing just some preliminary searching online through Google or Bing, DuckDuckGo, whatever your preferred search engine may happen to be. Again, thinking of the different ways of saying similar things, setting aside your personal definitions and considering what the provider's definitions for data and statistics may be. Considering whether or not to mix and match those terms to improve your results whenever you're searching for them. If you are using a search engine, you can limit it to specific site extensions such as .gov, which will get most but not all government sites, .edu, again, most but not all educational sites, and .org. I've got a link to an example at Google for a phrase search for Willamette River. Phrase search just means that I put quotation marks around Willamette and river to keep the two words together. I didn't want other uses of Willamette, so I wasn't looking for Willamette University or Willamette Street or anything like that. I just wanted Willamette River. I wanted Willamette River associated with Oregon, and either data or statistics from a government site. So if you clicked on that link, you would see federal sites like USGS, you would see state government sites, and you would see city or municipal sites like the city of Portland, all have information about data or statistics related to the Willamette River. Now I'm going to go into some of our library databases and collections. Our main database for data and statistics is called Data Planet, and it's our database aggregator. So it pulls in data and statistics from government sites. So it'll have the Census Bureau, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, et cetera. And it also has non-governmental organizations. So it has Zillow and some other types of for-profit companies. Business Insights Global, this is where you can find some financial data as well as other types of business data. It will only be for public businesses though, it won't be for private ones. Business Source Premier also has SWOT analyses and marketing research reports. And then Reference USA Gov is where you'll find more information about businesses, including private businesses, but that database is limited to US businesses. So we won't have access to business data where the parent organization might be international. We won't necessarily have as much information. And it also has information for US residents. So if you're looking for consumer level information, or maybe you're wanting to find veteran populations or other types of populations, that database will be helpful for that. We also have data and statistical sources in our collections, both in our print format through the library catalog and through our digital collections. We have state agency publications where agencies have reported data and statistics through their reports and other types of documentation. And we have kept records of that we have online. Whenever you click on a link to a database, it will ask you to log in with your library account. So you'll use your OR number and your password. And Data Planet takes a little while to load, so I'm intentionally showing you how long it'll take so that you're not surprised. Now it loads quickly. Do not be surprised if it takes you 10 to 15 seconds to load, which feels like a lot when you're in that 10-second length of time. That's not unusual for that to happen with this database. That's because it's loading everything in the background. If it's been a while since you've used Data Planet, anyone who's familiar with it, they did have an interface change earlier this year. So all of this is new. They used to have an older interface that used frames and the website, and they no longer have the frame system in place. They've also provided more browsing options. Along the top menu, you'll find options for the homepage, going directly into data sets, data basics. So if you're working on any kind of data literacy, you can find that there. That's designed more for academic users, so college students is what it's generally designed for. A help option, and then a search box. So if you know exactly the topic that you're searching for, you can type in that search box. Today, I'm going to show you some of the ways to browse for data, because I think this can also be a helpful way of finding the data that you're looking for. You can browse by subject. You can also browse by source. This is where it's a good way of seeing exactly all the different sources that Data Planet pulls in through its aggregators. I joke it's our A to Zillow database because it does start with the letter A, Administrative Office of the US Courts. Then you'll go through the statistical bureaus, such as the Bureau of Justice Statistics, Labor Statistics, the Bureau of Economic Analysis. While I mention this, one thing to keep in mind for some of the federal agencies, both their statistical bureaus and the main agency department for the federal department will be listed. So there's both the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and if I click on U to go down to the letter U, you'll find there's also the United States Department of Labor. So depending on the statistical source that you're looking for, when you click on source for browsing, you may want to take a look at both the main department at the federal level and its statistical bureau. And then whenever I get all the way down to Z, that's where you'll find that Zillow that I was talking about before. Just to view all again, so you can see, we also have the CDC, the Census Bureau, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is there as well. Many international options are here, NASDAQ. Once you get to the U's, that's where all of the United States options are. So here's where the Census Bureau is, and many of the others will be in here. You can also search by geography. This is a newer option that they provided for browsing. This came up over the summers, I believe, when they updated it this way. You can zoom in, and as you zoom in, it's an integration with Google Maps. It will recognize that now I'm looking at the United States and I can click on it for more options. At that stage, I can now choose a state map, and I can continue zooming in even more once it loads the state map. And it just did. So now I can click on the state of Oregon, and maybe I want the counties within Oregon, and I can keep on zooming in from there to find data sets according to particular counties. On the right are data sets that are featured usually in the news. So we've got the weekly reported COVID-19 new cases. This is from an international level data set. So it's not pulling it from the CDC, it's looking at it at an international level. Unemployment claims for the United States, mortgage rates for the United States, and then I could click on see more data sets to see more. I go back over to subject, and now maybe I want to know about housing and construction. So I'll click on housing and construction. It will open up a new page. And now in my left side menu, these are where all those browsing tabs have gone up to the top. And in the right side of the page, that's where my data set will appear once I make a selection. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. And from here, maybe I want to find out what are our current building permits. So I'm in housing and construction. I want to scroll down. Here's building permits. And I want to find out what are the reported building permits. And I can choose multi-unit housing, double units, or single units. I'll go into single unit housing. And I can find permits reported based on buildings, units, or the evaluation. I'm going to go ahead and click on buildings. And now the default setting is to show me all of the years. So when I scroll back up a little bit, here are all the different filters that I can select. I can pop out the years if I want to select a specific year. So maybe you're wanting to do some comparative research and you wanted to compare different decades. So you could deselect certain ones and only look at 1990, 2000, 2010, 2020. If you want to do a decade comparison, you could do that, or you could look at all of them. Right now, it's showing for the entire United States. I might want to switch that to just a state view. and focus on Oregon, it's always going to default to Alabama because Alabama is at the top of the alphabetical list. So this is one side effect of the new interfaces. You do have to always go down and select Oregon, click on Save. And now I have the information for the state of Oregon. I have a trend chart. I can switch that to a map view. If anyone here is working in GIS, you can export the shape files for these map views, but you want to make sure you're looking at the data set in the map view in order to have that option. So if I wanted the shape file, I could click on the export dropdown, and now the shape file is available. But if I move back over to the trend chart type and I clicked on export, the shape file is no longer there. So if you are interested in gathering shape files from different sources, make sure you have the map view selected. Pie charts are available, but sometimes there's too much. Yeah, so this one's not a good data set for a pie chart. There's too much data in here with all of the 50 states. But sometimes if you don't have as many variables, a pie chart might be helpful, and you would still be able to export either the underlying data, or you could export it as a PDF or an SAS file or something else, whatever format you like. There's also a ranking chart type. So if you wanted to see how Oregon compared to other states, you could look at this chart and find us on here. As you scroll down the page, the nice thing about Data Planet is they link you to all of their sources and all of the original data sets. So because it's pulling in data sets from multiple sources, it will link you back out to the US Census Bureau and then the specific data set that it's using for this. And over to the right, it gives you some categories and metadata. What are the subject terms? How often does it update this data set? It's updated annually. It was last updated November 25th. So you know the next time it'll be updated will be next November. There's some citation information here at the bottom. There's also citation information from a dropdown. So if you use a reference management system, you can export it to whatever you happen to use. I know we recommend Zotero, but there are other options here as well. There's also a calculator. So if you're combining different data sets, if you're doing cross-data analysis in Data Planet, this is one of those options where you can do that and adjust some of the functionality if you'd like. And there's a table, so if you want to see what the raw data looks like before you export it, it will load the data table for you, and you can export it from here as well in different formats depending on what works well for you to combine with your data sets that you're working with. So that's an example when you're just browsing for data. Maybe you're interested in some of that COVID-19 data. We saw there was a featured data set. You can type that in as well. And this database is case insensitive. So I can type in COVID-19 all lowercase and it will work fine in this database. There are 61 results that have COVID-19 in the data set somewhere. It could be in the title, it could be in the source description, it's somewhere in the data set. When I look over to the left, there are some options to refine my results. I can see that 14 of these data sets are archived. That means the data set that Data Planet's pulling from is no longer being updated. 13 of the data sets are from Canada. 10 of them are related to the US. StatCan is also Canada. So you can see where some of these database sources are. You can also view levels of detail. So do you need to get down to the state or the county level? You can focus on those. The sources, some of these are Centers for Disease Control. Most of them are the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control. And then the subject categories and subject terms. When I look at the data sets themselves, I can find data related to weekly cumulative reported cases, weekly number of tests performed, weekly reported deaths, weekly reported new cases, and weekly reported new deaths. And then it starts getting into the archival data. And in here, if I clicked on one of these data sets, I would go back to that same page where it would show me the chart and it would show me the progression. And these are weekly cumulative reported cases. I could go down to the country level and I could compare different countries. I could also look at aggregates. Once you do want to select a country, so if I did not want Afghanistan, if I did want to go down to the United States, in some data sets, the selections will keep going. In this particular one, it did not. To show you a data set where you can keep continuing down the thread of different geographies, I'm going to go back over to subject. And I'm going to go to population and income. And in here, some of the data sets that we've been looking at, I know many agencies have over the past couple of years, has been broadband access and technology. If I go to the American Community Survey, the most recent one is the 5-year estimate for 2015 to 2019. Well, the most recent one in Data Planet. Then I can select the continental US, and I can scroll down to select internet and computers. From here, there are different ways of looking at the data, such as types of computers, presence and types of internet subscriptions. But if I look at age by presence of a computer and types of internet subscription and household, then I can look at my variables. And from here, you can see there are many, many more types of geographic options that I can select. If I click on that pop out, I can get down to the census tract or the block group if I wanted to. In this case, I'm going to select counties within a state. I'm going to change it from Alabama to Oregon. And now I have all of our Oregon counties. When I keep on scrolling to the right, these are the demographic indicators for this particular table. So because I'm looking at age, I can select under 18 years of age, so we can get our K through 12 users, K through 12 population within the household. So it's a household that includes individuals under 18 years of age. And we can select different options, whether or not they have a computer, and if they have a computer, what is their internet subscription access, or if they don't have a computer. This is helpful for some of the work that libraries are doing in terms of helping create bridges across some of those digital divides that Oregonians are experiencing, either by expanding Wi-Fi access or providing access to check out computers or check out hotspots. Things like that are happening in the library world. And I know many other state agencies are also providing assistance wherever possible. So these are some of those ways that you can find that data. So if we want to know who has a computer but needs access to the internet, either they don't have an internet subscription or they only have dial-up, so they don't have the broadband that's really needed for things like this Zoom meeting, then I would select both of those options. And as I scroll down, it's showing me the different counties. I'm still in the ranking chart type because that's what I was at when I left the previous data set. And the different colors are showing me the different data. So I've got the total number, and then there's a green for under 18 years of age, and an orange for having a computer without an internet subscription, and green having a computer with a dial-up subscription. It looks like I had left my total selected, so let me deselect that, and that will make it easier to read. So now we can see that information and what the impacts are. You can also switch over to a pie chart if you wanted to. This is one where it would not be a good, this would not be a good visualization. So I'm going to go back over to the rank. Depending on the number of counties that you've selected, sometimes the trend option is helpful. So maybe I want to select and focus on particular counties. So I can click on pop out, deselect all, and maybe I want to compare Benton, Lane, and Lynn. And when I do that, then I can see what those options are. And if I change my selection so that I'm only looking at demographic indicators for households with individuals under 18 years of age without an internet subscription, then that also shows some more information. So this is one of the databases that you can use to find data sets. Another one is the Reference USA that I was mentioning earlier. Some other things you can find on this information guide are open access data sites, whether those are data repositories. Data repositories, whenever libraries use the term, we've got some definitions on here to talk about the difference between data repositories and data warehouses. Libraries will link to data repositories because they're collecting those data sets for storage and sharing. So we're interested in the shared resources, whereas data warehouses are typically those BI solutions for internal operations. So we'll be linking out to data repositories. And this guide, we're linking out to data repository directories, interdisciplinary data repositories. So these are data repositories that include most disciplines. And if they're data repositories that focus on one or just a few disciplines, then we have them listed in some subject and some disciplinary categories where you can go and look for specific data repository sections. We also have links to Oregon agency data sources. So we've linked out to the Oregon Open Data Portal, the Oregon Blue Book, and then we're linking out to your data sources. So DEQ databases, Oregon Explorer, which many state agencies contribute data to, the Oregon Water Resources Department. If I move over to education, we've got some information from the Higher Education Coordinating Commission and the Department of Education, information from the Criminal Justice Commission. If your agency has a data set or a reports or statistics site and it's not linked here, please let me know. I want to make sure that all of the state agencies' data and statistics are represented to make it easier for individuals to find your data. We link to federal agencies the same way. So it's similar structure just at a federal level, data.gov, and then the different statistical bureaus and websites and databases that are available at the federal level. There are also academic research centers. This is an area that is under construction. I've been going through the Oregon universities who have research centers and linking to their research centers so you can find the reports that they're publishing. In many cases, state agencies have collaborative agreements with these research centers, so you may have access to their research directly, but we're also linking to the research centers to help find them. And US-based organizations, these are frequently recommended organizations that are non-government who also provide access to data and statistics. So many of them are either providing access to data and statistics for free, or some of them may be behind a paywall. In that case, sometimes we can get copies of the data and statistics for you, especially if it's a report. So let us know and we'll use Interlibrary Loan to see what we can find. The Pew Research Center is great. Once they've finished publishing their reports, they provide access to all of their survey data for free. You just have to create an account with them, and it's a free account, just wants an email address. So we've linked to how to access it, so you've got that information, as well as how to download their data sets. International organizations and agencies such as the European Union and the United Nations has their own section down here. I want to stop now and ask if there are any questions.
I don't see any questions so far. I think you're covering everything.
Thank you. Okay, well, I highly recommend getting a library account activated if you haven't had a chance to do so yet. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to go ahead and type my email address in the chat as well. So if you'd like to reach out to me directly, you can do so.
Amy, we do have a raised hand.
Okay, I did not see that. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah. Tiffany, you have a question?
Hi, Amy. I was just looking kind of fast at those data repositories you're talking about with regard to agencies. And being that I work for Department of Revenue, I was just kind of quickly looking to see if some of our information was up there, and I didn't. So maybe I might be missing it, or it's not there. But I know that we have some, because I work in the research section, and so we have some data that we publish regarding like property taxes, income taxes, all sorts of different things. And so I didn't see these here. And so maybe I can email you and you can take a look.
Yes, please. I would definitely appreciate that. Yes. It might be something that I missed when I was reviewing the agency sites. I know many of our agencies have undergone website updates the last few years, so I probably missed something, and I definitely want to hear from you when I do that, so that I can fix it, so I can update the site. So please, yes, if you wouldn't mind, Tiffany, reaching out to me and sending me some links, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I see there's another question in the chat. Are there programmatic ways to access data across the different repositories and resources? Perhaps this would be best to follow up offline. Yes, Em, I can reach out to you, and it looks like you're thinking of in terms of a broader discovery search to search all the things. There's not really something exactly like that. It depends on how different organizations are releasing their data. Kathryn may have some more information about that from an open data perspective, but from a lot of what we're gathering in terms of databases, we run into copyright issues and things like that associated with some types of data sets and licensing and things like that. So that comes into play sometimes as well. There has been some work that some librarians have been doing, especially at an international level, where they've been trying to create customized Google searches. So the Intergovernmental Organization search that was put together by some government documents librarians, this is a specialized Google search that will only search intergovernmental organizations, but it's not the same thing as searching their repositories. So it's a little different.
Okay, thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I don't want to take up too much time. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right, Amy, thank you so much for that presentation. I see a couple of thank you messages in the chat as well. Somebody says this is super helpful information and I didn't know about all of these resources, and I echo that. So again, thank you for sharing this and thank you for sharing your email so that we can reach out to you if we have any further questions. With that, I'm excited to transition to the second part of this event. And this is hearing from the Chief Data Office. We're joined by two people from that office today. The first is Kathryn Helms. She is Oregon's Chief Data Officer, and she began her tenure in January of 2019. Kathryn has recently led the creation of Oregon's first enterprise data strategy, established Oregon's open data program, and is working to build enterprise data governance among state agencies. In previous roles, Kathryn led an initiative to centralize information and data governance at the City of Austin, which resulted in the formation of a multi-agency governing board to create policy and a core strategy for managing information throughout the city. Kathryn has previously worked in archives and records management consulting, including consulting with NGOs and governmental organizations in Rwanda, El Salvador, the United States, and Guatemala. Kathryn holds an MS in Information Studies and an MA in Latin American Studies. And we're also joined by Rachel Smith today. Rachel joined the Office of Data Governance and Transparency as Geographic Information Officer and a Deputy Chief Data Officer in September of 2021. Rachel joined the office from the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development, where she has been the CIO and Information Resources Coordinator for the agency, leading both GIS and IT teams. She has 20 plus years of experience using and promoting GIS and information resources that foster data-driven decision-making while advocating for data sharing, integrity, and stewardship. She has gained her diverse experiences through applied data analysis and technical leadership in the private and public sectors, including working with the Oregon Department of Geology and Mineral Studies and the Washington Department of Transportation. Rachel holds an MA in Public Administration from Portland State University and a BS in Geography from Florida State University. Thank you to Kathryn and Rachel for joining us today. Let me hand it over to you.
Hey, thank you so much. So I will go ahead and share my screen now. Folks should be able to see the slide deck, and hopefully not the presenter view, but just the slide deck. And I'll quickly just kind of go over some key initiatives that have taken place within our office. I did put two links in the chat. One is to the state data strategy. So you can actually download a PDF of our state data strategy. You can see some of the public comments we received. You should also have access to view Oregon's Open Data Program website. So that's where we've been putting all of our information and resources associated with Oregon's Open Data Program. So I had actually just this morning been reviewing the last time I was here at SORA, which would have been in May of 2019. So it's been a while, but I listed several areas where the Chief Data Office was responsible for delivering things like our enterprise data strategy, and open data program. So I'm really excited to be able to provide updates now on all of the work that we've been able to accomplish. And then also that I'm able to be here now with our new Geographic Information Officer and Deputy CDO, Rachel. So she'll also cover some key initiatives as well. But I wanted to first provide just some quick context for folks who may not be as familiar with my office and where I'm situated. So I sit within Enterprise Information Services. That's where our State Chief Information Officer, Terrence Woods, is located. And I oversee an office called the Office of Data Governance and Transparency. So really quickly, the last time I came here, I had, I think, 4 or 5 staff. So we're actually, you can see several vacancies in my org chart right now. We're trying to do a lot of hiring. So if anything that I talk about is of interest to you today, please do go to Workday and see if there are roles associated with the work that's taking place within my office that would be particularly exciting for you, since we are recruiting right now. You can see obviously that Rachel and I are here to manage several different teams. One, of course, is what we're calling our data team. So we're in the process of building a new team that will be focused on building data capacity within state agencies. You can see we've provided a lot of GIS infrastructure and support within our resourcing. We're also really focusing on transparency and open data within my office. And then we've brought on 2 staffers, Jacob and Jason, to manage program and performance management. So for those of you that are really interested in things like metrics development, portfolio strategy, we're building some of that both internally in our office and then hoping to start expanding some of that out to the enterprise as well from a training perspective. I wanted to quickly touch on one of the core the 4 primary functions of my office. So this slide is really from our state Enterprise Information Services strategic framework. You can see my 4 key priorities here. So open data, and we'll touch more on the state's open data program in a little bit. Similarly, building our statewide data strategy, so making sure that we do have an enterprise approach to data and that we have that kind of high-level guiding light for how we state agencies will be using data now and into the future. We also have programs associated with geospatial framework data. So Rachel will touch more on some of her key initiatives in this area as well, but really focusing on authoritative data resources that can be used publicly. So much as Amy talked about accessibility of different types of data, we actually maintain a few different open data catalogs within my office, one of which is for authoritative geospatial data. And lastly, there's also leveraging analytics. So making sure that we're identifying analytic solutions and opportunities, and also that we're coordinating across agencies and across silos to tackle shared challenges. So the first thing that I wanted to touch on in terms of updates from my office is that when I came in May, I said I was tasked with creating Oregon's first enterprise data strategy. So in February of 2021, we were able to release our data strategy. You can see the mission for it over on the left-hand side. We structured the strategy after our federal data strategy. So there are some high-level principles associated with how we manage data. There's a 10-year horizon kind of picture through some best practices that we've identified. And then we have some key elements of a biennial action plan, and those are some of the strategic initiatives that we'll also touch on in terms of development and priority within the next few slides. So I have an advisory council that helped with the creation of this strategy. We also went through 2 fairly extensive public comment periods. The data strategy website that I linked has the ability to see all of those comments and see sort of how we've made edits and shifts as time has gone on, in addition to being able to see the final product. I mentioned we modeled after the federal data strategy, and I really wanted to call out some specific things. One is that we have 3 pillars associated with our state data strategy. So the first is governance and effective management, making sure that we're contextualizing and governing our data appropriately so that we can receive value from it. The second is in ethical use. So making sure that we're also interrogating our data to make sure that we're understanding like representation, visibility, limitations associated with our data, and that we're documenting it appropriately, both to be shared with others, in addition to being able to educate our community and our public about how the data that we use or collect about them is leveraged in decision making. Lastly, and I think one of our most important and critical elements, and we'll touch on data literacy as well later, is this data-informed culture. So making sure that staff, employees, partners, and even Oregonians themselves are all educated in how we, the state, use data and how to best leverage data to inform decisions. So you can see those 3 pillars. We also have a few critical actions that we've identified over the coming biennium. The first is launching statewide data governance. So In January, hopefully, we'll be releasing our first statewide data governance policy, which sets a baseline for how agencies will be expected to manage data. We're also trying to build some internal data capacity within the state. So you can see I have several vacancies in my staff. We're trying to build up that ability to provide support and technological advancement to state agencies and consulting in open data. So we're really excited about that ability to continue to kind of foster this culture of transparency. And lastly, we really are considering how equity and ethics intersect within the realm of how we use data. So woven throughout our strategy is really a strong focus on how we as a state use data ethically in service of our constituents, because the data that we create is a public good. So making sure that we're really delivering on behalf of Oregonians when it comes to how we use and leverage our data. The first program that I wanted to touch on that we've launched is actually our state open data program. I think a few of you are actually open data coordinators, so you've probably heard enough about this program now, but I did put a link in the chat to our open data resources website, which is screenshotted over on the right-hand side of the slide. But we published an open data standard and a technical standard in February of 2021. Agencies were expected to identify an open data coordinator to act as a single point of contact and a responsible party for open data in July of 2021. And we currently have agencies going through the process of creating data inventories. This will eventually feed into an enterprise data inventory. So this will be the first publicly accessible enterprise data inventory available on data.org and .gov. We'll publish that in April of 2022. So I'm really excited about this because it's a foundational component of data governance, and there's really so much to tackle. Once you know what you have, you can start prioritizing and thinking about how best to govern it. And with that in mind, we're also launching our statewide data governance policy. So this is setting those enterprise definitions and expectations for data. We'll also be building our first data stewards council. So this focuses again on stewarding enterprise data sets, making sure that there's high quality data available to all state agencies. We're also in the process of reviewing our information asset classification policy, specifically to make it a little bit more legible and a little more consistent with some of the data governance work that we're undertaking. So I'm happy to answer questions about more of these as time goes on. I'm going fairly quickly because we've got quite a large portfolio in my office. So I apologize if I'm not lingering for very long on some of these items. The last initiative I really wanted to focus on was our statewide data literacy framework. And I really can't talk about this without talking about how thankful I am to Denise Whitney Dalka and also Tasha Chapman in DCBS for supporting this effort. So they're actually taking leadership of this statewide data literacy framework. They've convened a working group with support and blessing from my advisory council, and are in the process of establishing common vocabulary and terminology for agencies in the areas of data literacy, and also maybe some persona development. You can see an illustrative possible persona capability that will be launched as a part of this framework. The working group just started meeting in November, so we're still letting that work take shape, but I'm really excited about this initiative because I think building those core competencies associated with data literacy is really important. And with that, I actually wanted to pass it to Rachel Smith, who's our GIO and Deputy CDO, who will talk about some of our core work in geospatial data.
Yeah, thanks, Kathryn. So I only have 2 slides, so Kathryn can advance them for me. I appreciate that. So this biennium, we are implementing a project that was created to increase the sharing of geospatial data among public bodies, to remove barriers to data sharing, and to improve the management and governance of authoritative data. Our project, titled GDMS, or Geospatial Data Management and Sharing, will build a portal that will facilitate secured and open sharing of geospatial data. The project will also deliver a new data inventory and a management system that supports improved data stewardship and funding decisions for priority data development. By the end of the biennium, we will use 4 thematic areas to create new data and data publishing workflows that can test and validate the new portal. The 4 areas are wildfire, workforce development, elections administration, and transportation. So this is a lot of work. It's a big project that we're undertaking, and I just kind of summarized it really quickly in the three main pieces, but there's a lot of pieces embedded in each one of those bullets to advance geospatial data management and sharing in this biennium. Next slide. And then this diagram really illustrates the vision for data sharing in Oregon. It recognizes that data is often created at the local level, so starting at the bottom and aggregated by regional and state governments. State agencies and other external partners also create authoritative data, and that data is then shared on a variety of platforms, sometimes open and sometimes secured. These data should be shared so that analysis can be performed that provides the information needed to make smart data-driven decisions. And that's where we have the knowledge band there. In the end, and at the top of this diagram, we're recognizing that there are many business challenges that all have a shared need for geospatial data. And access to these data are critical to the functioning of our society. So this diagram just kind of shows the progression of data, recognizing that raw data, that authoritative data, and how it's being produced and aggregated, and then filtering up through portals and enterprise systems, and hopefully being shared and being used by a whole variety of people, and to produce wonderful outcomes for Oregon. But all of this, it only happens if we have good data sharing and we have governance models and governance processes in place to make sure that data that are restricted and need to be secured are done so in a proper way. And then we have proper change management and governance processes and inventories and stuff to manage those data sets. And then, of course, that's paired with some open data and hopefully you can see with the geospatial pieces that there's a real parallel and alignment with the open data strategy that Kathryn has been leading for the last couple of years. There is a parallel and there is an alignment here, and a lot of folks kind of may separate geospatial data from regular, non-spatial data. I'm trying, when I talk to GIS folks, I try to let them know that generally when Kathryn is talking about data, she's also including geospatial data, and many of the things that she's talking about how it should be governed and inventoried and cataloged and managed and stewarded and maintained, and what is the data maturity. All of those things apply to geospatial data as much as they apply to non-spatial data. So hopefully Kathryn and I will be working together over the next several years to implement this. I'll be working on the geospatial side of the house for sure, and then supporting Kathryn as I can. So, and with that, I will be short and sweet and leave it for questions.
Yeah, thank you, folks. I'll go ahead and end my screen share, and we're available to take any questions.
Nothing yet.
We left them speechless. Okay.
Getting some comments about the info being great.
There's a hand from EM or M.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I haven't seen a concise overview like this previously. This might be too tangential, and so I completely understand if this, isn't the right venue. But I noted that data is the basis for addressing the shared business challenges. And I note that there's a heavy emphasis on the use of an enterprise framework in the development, and then the description, and the presentation here of the data strategy. I come from an academic research environment, and in academia, enterprise and research are kind of in tension often. I wonder if the use of data should be so constrained by business and enterprise references and strategies that implement the kind of economic monetary bottom line into the decision making in a way that dismisses setting societal oriented goals. You know, these are the important things we want to do. I'll just stop, but I'll thank you for you know, hosting the event and presenting, and then giving me an opportunity to inject my kind of viewpoint and ask the question. I'd be delighted to follow up offline.
Yeah, well, and I'm happy to touch on specifically the language around business challenges, because I think that's something that you'll note specifically in the data strategy. We usually talk about shared public sector challenges. So making sure that we are not necessarily focused on like solely like performance and economic deliverables, but really recognizing that the business of government might be a variety of things, right? Like making sure that folks have capacity to participate meaningfully in society, making sure that they have access to healthcare, making sure they have access to green spaces, preserving any sort of like natural resources that we may have. So I appreciate the noted tension there, and I think that's something we also see kind of from a government perspective working in a decentralized agency, right? Which is why, at least within my role, which my job is created to kind of focus on that enterprise level view, things like our data strategy are still fairly high level, because there's expectation that agencies will use the guidance within there to set some of their own strategic priorities as well. But I think that's an important note, specifically that tension between sort of like business and delivery and productivity compared to maybe what many of us in the public sector might be committed to, which are much more about delivering services to people.
Thank you, Kathryn, and thank you, Rachel. I see some other thank yous in the chat for this very helpful information. I'm wondering if we're hoping to keep updated on the things that are happening in your office, is there a way that we can do that?
So I do have a newsletter right now. The current web presence we have is, I know Rachel can share the geospatial web presence as well. So our GIS entity has some really strong like outreach and web presence work, and then we're still working on building resources within my office for a web presence. But the data strategy website is very helpful. I continually post resources as well to our Open Data Program website.
And we can always come and give presentations whenever we need to, whenever you'd like for us to come back.
Great, thank you, Rachel, and thank you. Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Kathryn. And I do see, Kathryn, that you had typed in both of those websites earlier in the chat, and Rachel, I do see that you popped in the GIS website into the chat later, so we have those. And what we will be doing is we will be posting the recording of this Zoom session to our website, oregonresearch.org, and we will also be including a link to all of this information that was put in the chat. These links from you, Kathryn and Rachel, as well as the links that Amy shared earlier today. With that, that is that is what we had planned to discuss today. I will also just give a general SORA announcement. We are starting to plan for 2022. The executive committee is looking for volunteers to participate in a specific officer position. And by officer, I mean something like the website coordinator or the communications coordinator or the secretary, as well as general volunteers that help make events like this possible. So if you're interested in that, please contact me, and I will also be posting information onto SORA's website about that as well. And I am typing my email address into the chat right now, so you can get in touch with me that way. Again, thank you so much, Amy, Kathryn, and Rachel for your presentations today. And thank you to all of the SORA members that joined this session. Enjoy the rest of the day and happy December.